What's happening, everybody? This is Bob from CrossingBroad.com. We have Penn State and Iowa on Saturday night, a nationally televised game between these two Big Ten teams. You might remember the 2008 season, number 3 ranked Penn State traveled into Iowa as a favorite, and they lost 24-23 in a heartbreaker. Can this year's undefeated Penn State team avoid the same fate? We'll get into it in just a moment with our Penn State-Iowa betting preview.
You can make it rain.
All right, so for purposes of full disclosure, we got off to a pretty good start picking Penn State games this season. We started 3-0 ATS, and then the wheels fell off in the 4th game when Penn State was a 6.5-point road favorite at Maryland. We backed the Terps. That was a little bit of a swing and a miss, and last week we picked Purdue. It was a push. So what do we have for this week's game? Trying to get back on track with our Penn State picks. So if Penn State's going to cover this game, they're going to have to overcome, I would say, 2 pretty unsettling trends in this one. First thing, going back to the 2005 season, Penn State's 4-13 ATS on the road against top 25 teams, and only 1-5 against the number under James Franklin. That's a huge issue. The other thing is this: Penn State's teams under James Franklin, 0-4-1 ATS when a road favorite of 6 points or less. As we see, Penn State is a 4-point favorite coming into this one. Now, I go into every game. I don't have a bias going in. I just dig up the trends. I start to look at the matchups, and then I decide which way I want to go. And I will say, there are some trends that really favor Penn State in this game that jumped off the page at me. And so let's get into what they are. First thing, let's look at this from a conference perspective. Big Ten road favorites in conference games coming off a win of 30 points or less. Penn State won by 28 a week ago, or 89, 62, and 1 against the spread. That's netted the average $100 better, $2,227 over the long term. Again, you look at this and you say, all right, it's about 27 games over 500. That's a pretty hefty discrepancy, and when you get that type of sample size, you're talking about, almost 152 games there, 152 game sample size. That's significant, so something that's definitely worth considering. Now, when 2 ranked opponents between 10 and 15 in the rankings play one another in a conference game, and this isn't Big Ten specific, the road favorite is 24-16-2 ATS. When you take Big Ten teams and put them in the same situation, they're 4-1-1 when favored by 4 points or less. So when we get these short spreads against 2 ranked teams, that short favorite has done a pretty good job covering. So that backs Penn State as well. When 2 ranked Big Ten teams play each other, the road favorite is 10-4-2 ATS when they're favored by 4 points or less. So again, this backs Penn State. And Big Ten road favorites between 3 and 4 points are 3-10 ATS in night games. Now, time out. Wait a minute. That's a problem. Again, you look at this. Big Ten road favorites between 3 and 4 points are only 3-10 ATS in night games. So does the atmosphere under the lights get to these teams? Possibly. We see some things here that back Penn State, but this is definitely a little bit of a concern. Now, this is one that could go either way. When you look at this from the larger perspective, Penn State is 13-4 ATS under James Franklin when games are played at 7 p.m. or later. So they've excelled in night games under Franklin. Here's the only issue. They're 4-4 on the road in such games. Now, that does include the absolute thrashing that they put on Maryland a couple weeks ago. So we've seen them do this on the road at night in conference this season. So it shouldn't be that much of an issue. But just historically, they've struggled a little bit more on the road than they have at home. They've been almost lights out. They've actually been perfect at home at night under Franklin against the spread. Now, let's dig into Iowa a little bit. They're 7-3-1 ATS as a dog in night games, so they performed very, very well in this spot. And just Iowa as an underdog in general, 9-6-1 ATS as a home dog in Big Ten games. So 2 pretty decent trends here supporting a play on the Hawkeyes. All right, now before we get to our pick on this Iowa and Penn State game, let's first take a look at the total. We see that it's set at 41.5, and this is a pretty short number. And if you watched Iowa last week against Michigan, you would probably not want to bet on them to even score 14 points in this game, especially going up against a Penn State defense that gets after the passer. But Iowa's offensive line last week against Michigan was absolutely horrendous, and they're a pretty good offensive line. So are they going to make the same mistakes against a good front 2 straight weeks? I'm going to bet against that. So I like contextually Iowa offensively to bounce back a little bit. I don't expect them to drop 30 points. I don't even necessarily expect them to drop 24 points, but I do think that they're going to be able to move the ball and put some points on the board. Now, when we look at these trends, there are 2 trends above all of the other ones that really pop out to me. And so the first one is this. The over is 19, 13, and 1 when the line or the total is set between 41 and 42 points between 2 Big Ten teams. So again, 41.5, that fits the bill here. Now beyond that, and this is the one that I really care about, the over is 63, 45, and 2 in Big Ten conference games at night. We get a short total. We get Iowa coming off an atrocious, absolutely atrocious offensive performance last week against Michigan. I think it's a little bit of a bounce back spot for them. I expect these 2 teams to get over this number. Do I think they're going to light it up for 60 combined points? No, but I would, if I was going to take the total in this game, lean on the over. As for the game itself, I don't want to come across like a Penn State hater because I'm not, I promise you, even though this is going to be the 3rd straight week that I pick against them in terms of against the spread picks. It's a little bit of a toss-up game. For that reason, I'm going to go with the home team that has a good defense, that's in a little bit of a rebound spot off a bad loss against Michigan last week. Give me the home team, give me the 4 points. I'm going to lock in Iowa +4 in this one. If you want our full betting preview of Iowa Penn State, along with complete previews of all of the NFL Week 6 games and other top college games, head over to crossingbroad.com and be sure to check out all of our stuff.